LifeSpeak Podcast sponsored by Chafin Real Estate Services. Looking to make your next move? You're in the right place. Welcome to LifeSpeaks, the podcast that dives deep into real stories, big ideas, and life-changing insights.
Hi, my name is Leanne Chaffin, and today we have an episode with the podcast LifeSpeaks, where we hear testimonies, faith stories, overcoming stories. And today we have a testimony from my good friend, Don Nelson. I've known him for quite a few years, and he's been involved in the pro-life movement, as I have. And so I just want to say welcome.
Well, thanks, Leanne. Good to be here.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
I roped you into it.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Well, I know your wife, and
Yes.
you've done Bible studies together, and you're very passionate about what you've done in the past. I know we're all getting older, and we kind of back off certain things, but tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, Leanne, I was born in the 60s in Berkeley, California. And so I'm a native Californian, lived there about 30 years, and got called up here to be a youth pastor, and that's where I met my wife. And I was a pastor for a little while, and then I've been a pro-life advocate and real estate agent since. So for about the last, 30 years, I'd say my pro-life advocacy goes back, about 40 years now.
Mm-hmm. And what brought that passion for you for pro-life movement?
Well, I used to be, I'm sure you've heard this before, but I was not always pro-life. In fact, I was pretty pro-abortion. I thought, I was the worst kind of pro-abortion person, too, because I thought, well, living in Alameda, California, and Oakland, California there, you look and go, wow, some of those people, those babies, they're not going to have a chance in life. It's going to be horrible, whatever. So we might as well just take their life ahead of time. That's pretty bad. And I was going to a Christian school. I didn't think anything of it. And then two things happened. Number one was 3 ladies that I knew had abortions, and it didn't go well. And one gal, I remember, I was fully pro-abortion, Christian guy. I didn't know any better. And I went to see her one time, and she, where she worked, and I caught her in a pharmacy aisle. I saw her, and she was crying. And I'm going, why are you crying? And she says, I had an abortion last week or last couple weeks. And she says, I'm bleeding, and it's not going good and whatever. And she just starts sobbing, and I did my best to try to comfort her. I said, I tried to say, well, it's not that big a deal. I mean, I'm not real. I don't know what to say, but I didn't have any words for her there other than, I didn't think anything was wrong. I just, she had medical problems. And then a second gal who I just decided to date, I was a rebound, and she confessed to me that she'd had an abortion. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden out of my mouth came these words, God will forgive you. Mm-hmm. And, I think I'd been reading Father John Powell, the Jesuit priest, his pop psychology books while I was going to college. Mm-hmm. And then he wrote one on abortion called The Abortion Holocaust. Mm-hmm. And wow, that just changed me. And somehow in there, with her having an abortion and whatever, and then our relationship, I couldn't, it was hard to get close and stuff. And that didn't work out good. And so I just noticed it wasn't going well. And then I was reading Father Powell, and all of a sudden, I was pro-life, and I was very pro-life.
And so, that changed your heart.
Yeah, and I kind of, before I was pro-life, I remember going to a Christian college in San Francisco, Simpson College, which is now Simpson University up in Redding, California. And I had classmates who were very pro-life, and I was kind of mocking of them sometimes. I just felt like, well, I'm from San Francisco area, Bay Area, from Oakland, and those people, they're from flyover country. They're from Iowa and Nebraska. What do they know about real life, and what happens? And those guys were right. I was just totally wrong. Mm-hmm. And so then all of a sudden, I was pro-life and reading National Right to Life news way back in the mid-'80s. when some of the guys like Dave Andresco and Doug Johnson were getting going, they're lions of the movement now at National Right to Life. And I started writing letters to the leftist Oakland Tribune. I mean, it should have been the Havana, Cuba Tribune. I know people who are younger probably don't understand the reference to communism,
Yeah.
but
it's coming back.
yeah, and so I started writing letters, pro-life letters to the for the unborn, and I think I was the only guy that I think of, and no one recruited me. Whenever I used to see someone write a letter when I appear, I try to find out who they're all and call them up, say, hey, we're Nevada Right to Life, we're Nevada Life, or whoever we are. That was a great letter. Join us, So
awesome.
I was one of a couple guys, one or maybe another person in the Oakland Tribune who was writing and supporting life and duking it out with people, and so that's where I got my grounding. And you gotta have a tough chin to write in the Oakland Tribune. So
Exactly.
yeah, and then I went to Fuller Seminary after I graduated and from college, a couple of years later, and I was, adamantly pro-life down there. And I had a professor who was, he's written books, and, I started correcting these guys on their stuff. I said, hey, that's not wrong. This is, what's going on. And I remember he'd stare me down in class and whatever. And I just would gulp and I'm not going to quit.
Yeah,
And so
I'm not getting an A.
So I remember walking from the School of Psychology over to, Peyton Hall with him. And he says, you really believe that? And I go, yeah, I believe that. He goes, yeah, I think you're right too. So anyway, I was a little tested by fire a little bit there by a, eminent, Christian ethicist.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you were in Fuller Seminary, and
Yes.
then what happened after that?
I noticed that my cousin Karen and her husband Mark, they were doing Operation Rescues, and
wow.
and they were blocking abortion clinics or going out to protest there. I don't know if they were blocking them. And I just said to myself, when I'm 30 years old as a youth pastor up here, I'm going, man, I got to do something. Mm-hmm. So I joined a group, and Christian Action Council of Northern Nevada. I heard they were, starting something, a work up here. And so I got involved with them, and I'd had, I think I was the only pastor at the time that had gone through the PACE training or whatever.
Post-abortion counseling
yes.
education, yes.
But they kind of said to me, Don, you're a man, so why don't you go over to this other group? So pretty soon I was part of that group, and we were demonstrating. My first demonstration was at Planned Parenthood, and I'm not kidding, Leanne. We did our first demonstration over there. And they were going to protest Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood's birthday. Well, we didn't know that they were going to open an abortion clinic there to go along with the one, down the street from here. I don't know if you know, but over on Park and Mill Street, less than a quarter mile from here or half mile, that's where they used to do abortions. And so, anyway, I was going someplace. I can't remember. I hit 65. I'm on Medicare. Can't remember.
That's okay.
But so we went down there on 5th Street, I think it was, and we started protesting. And guess what? Some doctor who is over at St. Mary's found out about it and said, I better not see any of my doctors moonlighting doing abortions over there, and they never opened it.
Wow.
So praise the Lord. But pretty soon, I was protesting or doing what they call sidewalk counseling a lot, and then I was writing in the paper, being on TV or whatever, and we had other people doing that too. So it was pretty energetic, good group of people, and so that's how I kind of got my start.
Okay, and then you how we got involved is basically you were going to the legislature. So is there stuff in between that?
Yes. I took a little church in, Pennsylvania, and I was there for a while. Then I came back and got married, and I've experienced a lot of bad stuff. I had a near nervous breakdown because working in the legislature, telling the pastors one thing, and then telling other people, the legislators one thing, going out on limb. I climbed out on a plank and cut the plank behind me, and so it was pretty devastating. And I think the Lord put me out in the middle of Pennsylvania, in a county of 60,000 people. That was really big, a large county, so there's hardly anybody out there I could hurt, because I was just, seething with pain. And so I came back after getting married to my wife, fortunate that she said yes. And so...
She's a good balance for you.
Yeah, I'd say so. I got better than I deserve. So anyway, I get back here, and I'm still kind of hurting about it, and I'm thinking in my mind, you know what? Nobody cares about this stuff. I'm the only one. And, God just showed me time after time that there are more who are for us than against us.
Yes.
And that people really do deeply care after that. And so I got into, some work with, we started our own group, and what we were supposed to be was the Air Force for the pro-life movement. We had other people work in the legislature, and we would be doing media and things like that. And, I spent time lobbying a lot of people. So yeah.
So Nevada Right to Life, you were a part of that?
Yeah, we became a part of that. We were with a group, Nevada Life Issues Forum and Education, and our job was to make the pro-life issue known and defended in the public square. And wherever it was, we were going to be the shock troops that showed up defending that. After a while, you kind of look and go, we're kind of doing the same thing, so we ought to be with them. So they're the affiliate of National Right to Life Committee, the most influential pro-life group, that there is these days. With I think they have affiliates in all 50 states and about 3,000 local chapters.
And they go to the legislature.
Oh yes, yeah, very, very, very much. So yeah, that was our side. I know you're on the care and healing side. I try our groups. I think we try to support what you're doing, but we don't want to get in your way, because we're
trying to prevent.
Yeah, we're trying to do certain things, and we don't want to keep, from what we're doing impacting what you're trying to do.
Well, I think everybody's trying to work together, especially if it's Holy Spirit driven.
Yes.
Just a little history on mine. I had an abortion at 19, and I emotionally, spiritually, and physically suffered until I was in my 30s. And one of my friends noticed I was having panic attacks all the time. Now, I was not a believer at the time when I had one, and then later on in my 20s, I became a Christian. I thought, well, God's forgiven that too, right? But I still had all of this residual stuff going on emotionally and spiritually and physically, because I would have panic attacks. Where if my kids, my 2 children that are living, weren't in my purview or I didn't know where they were, I would actually physically feel like I was having a out-of-body experience of fear. And I can't explain that except that I almost couldn't breathe at those times. One of my friends, just watched me go through that, and she said, I don't mean to be rude, but have you ever had an abortion? And I said, wow, that's kind of a crazy question, but yeah, when I was 19, and it was kind of pushed upon me. I don't want to say forced, like he drove me to the clinic. He did not want the baby. Not that he didn't want the baby, it was the responsibility. We're both 19, it was just too much for him. And, even I had no support at the time from family or friends, and everybody was pointing toward that. And I was pretty naive, of a person. Anyways, later on, when she told me that, she said, you may want to go through PACE, which is post-abortion counseling and education. Just call Crisis Pregnancy Center, and that's when I got involved with Trione. And
wow, how old were you when that? How long after the abortion?
I was in my 30s, so I'm 66 now. So it was about...
You're suffering a long time.
I was.
From silence.
Shame.
Yeah.
And here's what
shame in silence.
Shame in silence. And you just don't want to talk about it, you know, and now people are saying, they're proud of their abortions. Even, you know, one of the singing groups that I totally adore, she came out and said it would have destroyed their group if she would have had the baby. And I'm thinking, you know, it's the big lie of society, me first.
Yeah.
You know, don't think about the fact that you had sexual relations, and it's like if you go through a stop sign, you're going to get hit by a car. You have to you don't have to kill another person just because you had
we have this interesting
unprotected sex. So.
We have this interesting view of women and view in society that says men and children in marriage are obstacles to a woman's happiness and well-being and whatever. And you think of all the women or however long we've been here on planet Earth who said no and have been able to you know, achieve great things. One of those crazy ideas out there.
Yeah.
And it's stuck in our nation's psyche, I think.
Well, I think it's definitely a spiritual battle that we're in. You know, Satan can't be the benefit of the blood of Jesus, so he wants the blood of the unborn. He wants the blood of innocence. There was a beautiful speech about a Catholic priest. He said, if you look at what communion is, Jesus says, this is my body.
Yeah.
But now Satan has twisted it to have women say, this is my body.
Yeah.
So it's this flip of just almost, you can see how Satan's taken something so holy and just flipped it. And so, you know, it's not your body, it's a baby's body, and it's in your body.
Yeah, you know, Leanne, that reminds me, I was, you know, a youth pastor when I first got into, you know, pro-life activism. And, you know, I'd gotten ordained and everything. And that caused a lot of consternation, what I was doing out there. And I think it kind of helped me let go. They didn't fire me, but they ran out of money for my position. So anyway, I remember sitting there the last week or two before I was going to leave. And we were having communion that day. And, you know, I was a Baptist, so it means different things than it does for a lot of people. But I remember looking at that and I said, you know, the abortionist is the high priest for the sex revolution. People come in and they say, oh, dear abortionist, we have sinned. We've had unprotected sex and we got pregnant. And, you know, that's our sin, is I'm pregnant unexpectedly. And I don't want to demean, you know, the difficulty of that solution, but what they're doing is they're coming to the abortionist and asking them to solve the problem and to atone them. And so what does he do? He takes the body and breaks the body and blood of the unborn child and says, here's this body broken for you. Go and sin no more. And so the abortionist is the high priest for that. And I think it's important
I wish they were saying go and sin no more, but what happens is
well,
a lot of the women then go out and do the same thing, and they use it.
Very sad.
Because I've ministered to several women who have had more than 10.
Wow.
They use it just for birth control.
Yeah, I heard that 49% of all abortions are repeat abortions.
Yes, they are. And because we have swallowed the pill of the lie, again, that it's your body, and it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter what you do. Well, it does matter, and your body holds the secret or the trauma of that secret and whether you're proud of it or you're not proud of it, your body's still holding that trauma.
Yeah.
And so, spiritually speaking, we're triune people. We're spiritual, we're physical,
Sure.
and emotional. And so, all those things wrap in together and affect us. And by the grace of God, I am now walking in healing and forgiveness. So I know I was forgiven, but I didn't want to talk about it. But healing allows me to say to others, if you need healing, maybe you don't. Maybe you feel like you don't. But if you do need healing, you can reach out to Hope Ministries and Deeper Still Ministries and Real Choices Women's Centers. We want to guide you into that forgiveness and healing so that you don't repeat it. So, and that's really the goal. So what you're saying is, would you say 49%?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Like 49% or 50% of all abortions are repeat abortion. And,
Because it worked before in our psyche. I was relieved before, I can get out of it again. And I knew when I had gotten pregnant with my daughter, I am not doing that again. Now there's two reactions. There's I'm not doing it again, or there's the person that's like, oh gosh, I've got to do it again because I got to get out of this situation. I got no support. And so the goal is with Pro-Life Ministries, I'm now training to be an advocate for Real Choices, is to help whoever walks through those doors who is pro-abortion minded, to show that there's three options. There's adoption, there's abortion, and then there's parenthood. And we can give you the education. Here's the key. Planned Parenthood did not give me any education. I came in...
Or any other option.
Or any other option.
Yes.
And when you don't have education, what is it that you don't have? You don't have respect. They didn't give me the respect or the honor to think that I could handle the education. If they would have showed me what a real abortion does...
You think it might have flipped the script?
It would have flipped the script.
Okay.
If I would have had a heartbeat, if I would have had an ultrasound, something, I could have made an educated decision. And then it would have been on me if I would have went ahead and went through the abortion. There are many women that go through, I say 20% of the women that go through a ultrasound do make that decision still, but that's, at least they made an educated decision. I'm very passionate about this, by the way, because I was so young and nobody gave me an education of what really an abortion is. Now we have the abortion pill, to where these women are going home with 2 types of drugs and they are delivering a baby in their shower or in their toilet. The trauma now, it used to be maybe 10, 15 years, maybe now it's months that these women are going through this trauma of, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah, I remember talking to a psychologist that goes to our church about this one time, and, this is going to be wild, because they've moved the abortion clinic from whatever street it's
The
on
corner.
to their bathroom, and that's where it is, and they don't have any staff there to hold their hand or whatever they do, and then all of a sudden they go, wow, that's not a blob of tissue. Dang, look, it's got those little fingers and feet and, maybe this big.
Arms and legs.
But yeah, you can make it out. So it'll be interesting. Dr. Patricia Coleman, I think she's one of the leading abortion researchers in the world. She's at Bowling Green University. And she said, back when I was doing a lot of activism and we were fighting for certain, bills would be for more disclosure and informed consent. She said 10% of all mental illness can be attributed to abortion. Yeah. And that's not just 10% of mental illness that comes from women who've had abortion. It's just saying that 10% of all, that's how big it is. And they've tried to refute her, and they've, criticized her studies, and she says, okay, but still my results. So that's a lot of hurting people out there. And I think that's why, pastors, they need to be talking about this, because they don't.
Absolutely.
Women, a lot of times, and the men who've been involved too, there's men that are suffering that they may not have had a choice at all, because, men are supposed to be irrelevant. I'll just support what you do and whatever. They try to save their baby, and they've got these problems for not being able to do it. Then you have the men who are dropping her off, and here's the couple $100, the $500 to do it, and then he's never going to see him again. You've got them, and you've got the women who've had it, and they're sitting in there, and they're going, it doesn't apply to abortion. And so what I've heard, our guests on our old radio show used to say that it is such a big deal that just saying God forgives all sin doesn't cover it. You got to talk about abortion.
Right.
I don't know if they're saying that in your training, but that's what
I totally agree.
That's why I forgot to mention, Leanne. I hope I'm not. If I'm interrupting, let me
know.
No. But I used to be a radio host, pro-life radio host, once a week, an hour for about 7 years, and we'd interview the best of the best on our show.
Except for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we didn't know you then. So it was 20 years ago almost now. Wow, I got old so fast. 18 years ago, I think it ended. But
you're eternal, so it's okay.
What's it? Okay.
You're eternal, so it's okay. Our bodies are getting older, but we're going to live forever.
Yeah, so I don't know if I ever interviewed Dr. Coleman, but I used to do that, and I think I was the only radio host in the history of Catholic radio wasn't Catholic, and so I saw in the Fuller Seminary, alumni newsletter one time, Don Nelson, class of 1988 or whatever, at certain radio station, only only evangelical host in the history of Catholic radio.
That's awesome.
so
that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. That's great.
So, I was going to say, I think there's something to, women talking about their abortions that, is helpful to ending abortion. And that's a big deal. My thing was I started with, obviously seeing how wrong it went with my friends.
Absolutely.
But then it did turn to that the reason I oppose it is because it's wrong to intentionally kill innocent human beings.
Anybody.
The unborn abortion kills a human being, therefore abortion is wrong. Right. And so that's why I'm against it, because it's the unjust killing of an innocent person who is helpless. And so that's why for so long I was dedicated to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think the words pro-life or pro-choice is now coming out to be pro-abortion or pro-life. And so at least it's more out there as this really horrific thing that we're doing. Charlie Kirk did so many good things for the pro-life movement.
I was shocked at how pro-life he was.
Oh, he was amazing. And so that's why I followed him. And my kids were like shocked that I knew who he was, because he was a kid. And I'm like, he was the most pro-life kid out there on the campuses. But the demonic forces he had to come against, that these women and men that were very pro-abortion, not pro-choice, just pro-abortion, was, it's almost hurts my ears to think about that, that they would feel that demonstrative about, one girl came out and just said, I'm pregnant, I'm going to get an abortion today. And I'm like, it just blew my mind that she was so bold in her disobedience, or, whatever you want to call it.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting that you say, pro-abortion. And I've tried over my, time as an advocate not to say the word murder, because I feel like the abortionist is murdering. He knows what he's doing. He or she, they know what they're doing. I mean, they can see, they understand, they've done enough times, they don't need anybody's helped, whatever. But, you know, the young woman or woman who's going through it, you know, murder means you have to have all kinds of stuff going on to describe that, you know. But so I use the word killing, but
Yes.
the other thing is I used to be willing to, or disposal or whatever. But the other thing I've used to want to say a lot is, okay, if you tell me you're pro-choice, I'm going to take your word at it if you're honestly not for abortion or whatever. But, you know, you get asked, Leanne, questions about rape and incest, and then what are you going to do for the mother, you know, the child after they're born, as if that it's okay to kill a living human being who's totally dependent on other people and is innocent and hasn't done anything wrong,
Right.
and to say, because you're not going to do that, it's okay to kill them. That is ridiculous and pathological.
Yeah.
And then you see these other people go, well, what about rape and incest? And so you go, okay, well, listen here. If there were only abortions for rape and incest, or there were never any pregnancies due to rape and incest, and if we gave you, and then if there was, and we said, okay, we'll do all abortions for rape and incest, now you get those, will you help us end abortion?
No.
And stop it?
They
And they'll
won't.
say no. And it's like, well, what did you bring it up for?
Right.
And so you have to
Right.
say at the end of the
Right.
day, you, my friend, are pro-abortion.
Right.
And, you know, when you come to that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
why bring that up? And, you know, when it comes to rape and incest, why are you using those horrifying situations, you know, to exploit the woman? Because
Right.
what it says is that, look, it sends the message loud and clear that no sane woman could possibly be raped or incested and have any love for her child. What is wrong with that person?
Right.
And but we do find, so it's exploiting their pain. It's using
Right.
their pain to advance a political agenda there. And, you know, we find out that even the gals who have experienced rape and incest, that most of them keep their child, and most of them are glad that they did. And
Yeah.
those who didn't, most of them are regret it.
Really, really
Yeah.
suffering. I was in a
So pro-abortion, I think,
it was
can
in
be
a
out.
post-abortion class, just to piggyback on what you're saying. And the woman had been raped at 14, and I guess it would be
I'm
considered.
sorry, Leanne, I was just smiling because I was
Yeah.
thinking something, but I wasn't thinking smiling
It's
at
okay. But the young lady at that time went, and I'm not sure how it happened, but it was a later in her pregnancy where she had the abortion. And she said she suffered for many years because she was only 14 and she was cast out of her house. I mean, it was a horrible situation in all, but the pain that she experienced, she's now 60-some years old, now is finally getting forgiveness and healing from that, you know, and she knows that she'll see that baby in heaven again. So that's really the goal, you know, is that redemption of the cross, redemption of the gospel, you know.
You know, my friend Pastor Herb Ireland, he was a great pastor. He married my wife and I, and he was at Sparks Nazarene Church over here. I think they call it Home Church of the Nazarene. And he was on our board when, you know, I was a know-nothing 32-year-old pro-life leader, president of this great group of people, and you know, pro-life people. And I remember he was preaching one Sunday on Sanctity of Life Sunday. He was preaching on abortion, and he started talking about the pain women hurt. And I go, Herb, man, what are you doing? You're my friend. You're letting me down. You're supposed to talk about how abortion is wrong and whatever, and the unborn. And the title of his sermon was, I Will Hold You in Heaven. And he started talking about the pain of David losing his child and how it was his fault and whatever. And he said, I want you ladies to know that you'll have, if you find forgiveness in Jesus Christ, if you repent and give it over to him, that you will be forgiven, your child will forgive you, and you'll have a reconciliation someday. And you know what, Leanne? I've never seen so many tears in my life in one sermon.
Yeah.
That was something. So that told me,
Yeah.
a lot of hurt out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to close this episode, and then we're going to rejoin Dawn in the next episode. And I just want to
Great
thank
to be with you.
Dawn, for being here. We really appreciate it. And
30 minutes goes fast.
Yes, it does. And please subscribe, like, and share this podcast if you find it of any value. And if you don't, we'll be praying that you can find value in this podcast. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. If this is a series, we will be having another episode that you can look for. And we are so grateful that you are here with LifeSpeaks Podcast. Thank you again.